ongoing debate regarding standardized testing in the United States has been a key issue over the past 13 years since their implementation in 2002.
Standardized testing has played a prominent role in our academic lives, but what has it really done for our education? We must ask ourselves, is the use of standardized tests effective, or should the procedure be altered to better utilize testing processes?
It's time to come together to get it done so that we can truthfully say in America, no child will be left behind.
The No Child Left Behind Act was implemented on January 8, 2002, which required annual standardized testing in all 50 states.
Consequently, the spending of these tests rose from around $423 million to roughly $1.1 billion.
The president's nearly $48 billion education plan includes testing children annually to more closely monitor reading and math skills, rewarding schools where grades improve and punishing failing schools by cutting federal money to districts that don't show progress, and allowing parents of children in public schools that fail 3 years in a row to use tax dollars, government vouchers, to move their children to private.
Check this out. A new study of the country's 66 largest school districts found that from pre-K to 12th grade, students actually take a total of about 112 exams. They spend about 20 to 25 hours taking those tests each year. That's about 2.3% of classroom time for the average 8th grader.
Teachers have reported kids throwing up, kids crying, especially the younger ones. And it's the pressure.
That's true. In fact, this happens so much that official instructions for test administrators specify what to do if a student vomits on his or her test booklet.
I don't think standardized tests are necessarily the best reflection of a student's overall intelligence. I think less emphasis should be placed on standardized tests and more should be placed on the student's overall body of work.
I agree with standardized testing because I think it's fair to judge each student based on what they know on a certain test. But with that being said, I think like the ACT could be revised to show like more curriculum-based material rather than like, for example, like the science, like it's all graphs. Like what does that have to do with anything?
Personally, I'm not a fan of them for multiple reasons. They're really annoying to take, and you have to study strange questions that you usually don't have to answer later in life. But also because most students learn differently and they test differently, and standardized tests don't really reflect the best education of testing purposes. So I'm not a fan of them.
I personally don't mind them because I'm a very good test taker, but I am opposed to them because I feel like it's one, 2-3 hour span that really can change a lot in your life. It can change scholarships in colleges and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a lot of pressure to put on to students, especially if they don't test well.
Standardized tests were implemented for 5 main reasons: to hold educators accountable, to evaluate student progress and knowledge objectively, to identify gaps in student education, to identify gaps in student goals and achievement in different student groups, and to determine the effectiveness of educational practices and policies.
Standardized tests certainly have their attributes. For example, China, a country with centuries of standardized tests, is currently topping all other countries in math, science, and reading education as of 2009.
Additionally, 93% of students believe that standardized tests have a positive effect on student achievement. Similarly, in January of 1998, 66% of college professors thought that students were expected to learn too little prior to college. In 2002, after the passing of the NCLB Act, that number dropped to 47% in direct support of higher expectations, strengthened standards, and better tests.
Downsides are certainly prevalent when mandating standardized tests as well. After the NCLB Act, America dropped from 18th to 31st in education. Additionally, the concept of testing for the test is becoming increasingly common. A growing number of schools are narrowing their curriculum away from other courses in order to focus on math and reading.
After the NCLB Act, 44% of school districts reduced time spent studying science, social studies, and the arts in order to focus on tested material. We must consider the growing cost of these tests as well, as they have already risen to roughly $1.1 billion annually.
After evaluation, there seems to be still an overwhelming focus on these tests that inhibit students from being judged effectively on their knowledge as a whole. Additionally, the cost of the tests, testing for the test, and time consumption for the tests are all significant problems within the testing system.
And as president, I want to hold all of us accountable for making sure every child everywhere is learning what he or she needs to be successful. And that's why I believe that in moderation, smart strategic tests can help us measure our kids' progress in school. It can help them learn.
Standardized tests do have a place in our society. That being said, the effectiveness of these tests would be utilized best if the amount of tests were used in moderation, tests were only used occasionally to gauge performance, and if tests were only used to enhance learning.